There are parts of having ADHD that really help as a writer, and there are parts of having ADHD that make it much harder. As someone who was diagnosed as an adult and has spent the years since finding the techniques that work for me, I want to share what I've learned. Having ADHD does come with some roadblocks, but there are ways you can navigate around and through them. If you find traditional writing advice to be lacking some of the oomph that you need as a writer with ADHD, I'm here to help. And honestly, even if you don't have ADHD, I think these tips can still help you be more productive as a writer. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Blank Page podcast, where the goal is to start seeing the blank page as an opportunity and not as an enemy. I'm your host, C.E. Withrow. You can call me Kat. I am an indie author. I've finally done my set here. I finally finished decorating it for the most part. I'm probably going to switch up these bookshelves a little bit, but if you're watching this on video, I got these bookshelves for Christmas. I finally built them. I messed up my back right after Christmas, so I couldn't get them together for a while, but now they're built. They're looking really cute, and I'm obsessed with them. So, obviously there's going to be tangents in this video. You didn't come to an ADHD advice video for straightforwardness, right? I hope not. But let's get into the advice. So a little bit about me and my ADHD journey. I've had ADHD all my life, but I was undiagnosed until I was 24. I think especially for a lot of women and femme-presenting people, this is pretty common. I know many of my friends weren't diagnosed until adulthood or never got a formal diagnosis. I've personally found my diagnosis really valuable for my life, mainly because I was able to get medicated, which has been really, really game-changing for me. The first day I went on ADHD meds, I actually cried because I was so relieved that I could focus on stuff without the amount of effort that I had put in the past. I know being medicated is a privilege, and if it's something potentially available to you, I really encourage you to try medication. But if you're undiagnosed or self-diagnosed and not looking for an official diagnosis, that's totally understandable. You know what you need better than me? A random woman on the internet. So wherever you are on your ADHD journey, the advice I'm going over can help. Feel free to try these and tweak them as you need to make them really work for you. ADHD brains, like all other brains, are not one size fits all. So my first piece of advice is more like a group of advice around finding how you focus best. And I know, I can hear you saying, well, I can't focus, hence the ADHD, but I know that you can focus if you build the right structure, routine, and flow, because I can. Plus, I know that you've experienced hyperfocus when you can lock in and do work for hours straight, like the night before that big paper was due, or when you suddenly had a burst of inspiration for something that you've been putting off for forever, and you're able to lock in and do work for hours straight. So the goal of this group of advice is to find ways to trigger or mimic hyperfocus. The first thing I love doing is putting on a body doubling video of either somebody studying or writing. Body doubling videos are essentially where someone is already doing what you want to do. So that might be someone studying or cleaning or writing, etc. There are tons of great videos out there. I even made one last fall. I might do some more because I spend a lot of time sitting at my desk writing. Body doubling signals to your brain that it's time to work because somebody else is working. It's hard to motivate yourself to do it, but if somebody else is already doing it and you can just copy them, it becomes a lot easier. I've linked some of my personal favorites down in the description, but if you want to find your own preferred video and my recommendations aren't really gelling with you, try looking up Write With Me or Study With Me videos. There are so many out there. There are versions with rain sounds and no sounds and timers and background music, and there's a wealth of options out there, and I recommend finding what really works for you. Okay, next, I recommend lighting a candle, a scented candle specifically, and try to have one scent that's dedicated to your work time or even specifically your project that you're working on. Scent is the sense that's most closely connected to memory in our brains. So if every time you sit down to write, you light the same candle, over time, you'll automatically start associating that scent with writing. I actually posted a TikTok years ago with this advice that got 1 million views, and I did get a lot of comments talking about how people were nervous they were going to forget about the candle burning because of the aforementioned ADHD, which, fair. So if you have a tendency to forget about candles, my first piece of advice is to try having it directly in your sight line, like on your desk next to your keyboard, but not too close. That way you'll see it there, and at the end of your writing session, you'll see it and go, oh, I got to put that out. But if even that might be too much for you and you're worried you're going to forget, you can try a candle warmer, incense, or an essential oil diffuser. Candle warmers generally have timers built in, so you don't have to worry about forgetting. I will say if you use a candle warmer and you're using like a Bath and Body Works candle or something like that, just like a normal commercially available candle, after a while the top layer of wax will kind of like stop smelling, so you do have to pour it out. And do not pour it down the sink. Make sure you're pouring it into like a garbage, maybe like a garbage bag, plastic bag, whatever, something that also will not melt. I did have a friend once who poured it down her drain and then had to take apart her bathroom sink because she poured wax down the drain and all got stuck. So don't do that. Another option is incense, because once they're done burning, they'll go out on their own. The scent does linger for a while with that. So if you're only doing a short writing session, incense might not be the move unless you have like a dedicated writing room or office space or something where like the smell will be contained. But if you're looking for something that's 100% fire and smoke free, essential oil diffusers are probably your best option. I know that I've tried all of these various things and I use them for various applications in my life. So even if you get an oil diffuser and then you realize you don't want to use it while you're writing, maybe you use it while you're taking a shower and then your shower smells nice and then you have a nice relaxing shower scent. I don't know your life, but I do have a shower candle that I light every time I shower, and it just makes it like a little bit nicer. But that's not what we're talking about, is it? So moving on from scent, my next piece of advice is pretty cliche, pretty classic. Listen to music while you're writing. Lately, I've really been preferring listening to albums over playlists, because I think depending on the album, listening to one all the way through can make a more consistent sonic environment that makes it much easier to focus and not get distracted by the music. I think why this works for me personally is that I'm able to get into more of a flow state because I know what song's coming next. I'm not getting distracted by the random songs that are popping up in my playlist that I haven't listened to in forever, because I know that I add a lot of like random songs to my project playlist and then I forget about them and I'm like, oh my god, this song is great, and then suddenly I'm distracted. For the project I'm currently working on, I've been listening to If I Can't Have Love, I Want Power by Halsey, which banger of a angry female rage, female condition album. I'm obsessed with it. I have not stopped listening to it for the last like month. I mean, I've listened to other things, but it's been a lot of that. I also think the new Harry Styles album is a great one to listen to because it's pretty consistent all the way through. Though my favorite album of all time to write or study or work to is Decide by Joe, as in Joe Keery. That is a perfect album to me, and I'm obsessed with Joe Keery. So to sum up this grouping of advice, try different combinations of these things. I found that overall, what makes focusing easiest is to mildly overwhelm myself so that I can hone in on my story. And I know that sounds kind of crazy, but stay with me. If you sit down at your desk with your computer in complete silence, how long do you think it will take you to get distracted? You sit down to write, and next thing you know, you're cleaning your desk or reading the book that you have next to you or scrolling on social media for an hour when you meant to just do it for a few minutes. I know I'm guilty of this for sure. So increasing your sensory input makes it so you aren't getting bored so easily. For me personally, when I have more than like 15 minutes to write, I'm going to be putting on a body doubling video. I'm going to be putting on music. If I have more than 30 minutes to write, I'm also lighting a candle. The reason I don't do that if I only have like 15 to 20 minutes is because I don't want tunneling in my candle, which we won't get into because I already feel like I've talked about candles way too much in this video. Another thing that could help is maybe like having hard candy, like sour candy can help people who are experiencing panic attacks. I've heard, I haven't tried that because I think, fucking God, haven't had a panic attack recently, but that's just another sense that you can have like some sort of stimulation going. So to me, if I'm bored and I'm sitting in complete silence, I'm not going to want to work. I'm going to get distracted. So the more things that I have going on, and also these things that I always do when I'm writing, it cues to my mind and to my body that it's writing time. It's time to sit down and write and not get distracted, hopefully. But now moving on from that group of advice that sums up to lightly overwhelm yourself so you don't get bored so you can actually work, let's move on to some other miscellaneous advice. First off, the Pomodoro method. This is one of the coping techniques that I learned right after my ADHD diagnosis. The doctor that I went to had these free like ADHD coaching sessions that were part of the diagnosis process. So I met with a woman who gave me some coping techniques, and this is the one that I implemented right away, and I pretty much have consistently used since then. And it's been like 4.5 years, almost 5 years. That's crazy. Anyways, the Pomodoro method is where you set a timer for a period of time you want to work, and then a shorter timer for a period of time to rest or just, not be on. The most common intervals that I see are 25 minutes of work, 5 minutes off, or 50 minutes of work and 10 minutes off. A lot of the body doubling or study with me videos that I love also use the Pomodoro method, but you can definitely just do this yourself by setting your own timer on your phone or on your computer, or looking up a Pomodoro method video on YouTube that has a timer built in. I recently got a visual timer for the first time at the recommendation of How to Keep House While Drowning, which is a book about, keeping your home clean and organized and not a hot mess while having ADHD. Really recommend that. I feel like I talked about this last week too. I haven't finished the book yet, but it's already kind of low-key changing my life. But the visual timer is, like the classic kitchen timer where you put however much time up to an hour and then it slowly closes up. And so you can really quickly look at it and see how much time you have left. I've found it really helpful. That's actually something that I've been experimenting with incorporating in my writing sessions. Although again, I am usually watching a study with me or write with me video that has a Pomodoro timer included. This way, it's a lot easier for me to look and see how much time I have left. I have terrible time blindness, so I need to do a lot to be able to understand how much time is passing by. It's really fun. It's really fun being time blind. This next step is something that I like to do if I'm just really having trouble locking in and focusing, but I really want to get stuff done, and that is writing in public. I used to do this in college by going to the library, and now if I feel like I really need to lock in, I'll go to a coffee shop, although I really should start going to the library again. It is something I'm considering. Anyways, for some reason when I'm in public, I'm judging myself through the eyes of the people around me, so I feel really pressured to actually write. This is probably also social anxiety, but you know what? If it works, it works. I personally feel a little bit weird if I'm at a coffee shop with my laptop and I'm sitting there and I'm not writing, but again, that could just be anxiety. But changing your environment is a good way to mix things up and make it so that you're not bored so you can focus. And then also, if you're in public at a library or a coffee shop, you aren't going to need body doubling videos or background noise videos because you've got the real deal all around you. Okay, next up, I'm pretty sure that you struggle with transition times, because I know that I really struggle with transition times. And what that means is, let's say that I need to leave the house at 8:30 and it's 8 and I'm ready, but now I'm like, I can't do anything because I only have 30 minutes. Now, if you have that time, you're going to turn that into writing time. If you are doing this, make sure that you're setting an alarm or a timer so that it'll alert you when you have like maybe 5 minutes before you need to leave. So again, if you're, done getting ready at 8, you have to leave at 8:30, set an alarm for like 8:25 or set a 25-minute timer. That way, if you hit your groove and you lose track of time, you aren't going to be late. And even if in that time you only write maybe a few hundred words, that's still a few hundred more words that you wouldn't have written if you had been, scrolling on your phone for 30 minutes, because I know that's something that I fall into as a habit a lot when I'm in transition times. I'm like, well, I don't have time to do anything, so I'm just going to scroll on my phone. Now, this next piece of advice is kind of a general ADHD piece of advice, and that is that you should look into self-regulation and figure out a way to regulate yourself before you sit down to write. People with ADHD often experience sensory issues, and that, along with the stress of trying to exist in a world that is not designed for us, can leave you really overstimulated, overwhelmed, and dysregulated. I know for me, I'm often dysregulated when I leave work. The in-office corporate girlies get it. So I regulate a little bit on my way home by listening to music and just mentally processing the day. And then once I'm home, I will immediately put on comfortable clothes, give myself like 20 minutes to cuddle my dog. Maybe I'll scroll on my phone and just let myself kind of come back to my internal baseline. And then once I feel like a person again, I can write or craft or whatever I want to do. I know that personally, I had a day like a couple weeks ago where just every single thing was bothering me. I was like, my clothes are making me uncomfortable. It was too hot in my office, and then it was too cold in my office. And then I forgot my lunch, so I had to go out to eat, but then I didn't want to have to make a decision about what to go out to. It was just a whole thing. I was very overstimulated. And when I came home, I did my little self-regulation routine, and then I was able to write a little bit. And sometimes you also just need to do the self-regulation to get like anything done, but such is life. So if you were having a day where you're really overstimulated and dysregulated, and then you try to write without getting yourself good first, you might feel really overwhelmed with your book and with writing, because writing can be really overwhelming if you don't kind of put on your little blinders, because you might start thinking about like, oh my God, who's going to read this? Are people going to judge me? Like, is this ever going to get published? Am I going to have to indie publish it? Blah, 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 blah. And then suddenly you're off track and you are just gone. I like to think of regulating myself as giving myself the best possible mindset to do good work. I'm definitely not an expert on self-regulation, and it's something that I still struggle with, but there are great resources out there, and I'm going to link a few in the description of this episode. And for my final piece of advice, make sure you're having fun. Writing can be really fun, and finding something about your writing practice that makes it fun is really important, because if it's not fun, you're going to put it off. I know, because I do the same thing. People with ADHD chase those little dopamine hits, so if you start dreading working on a story or writer's block hits, it's going to be really hard to sit down and write. And I know that personally that makes me start avoiding writing. So to kind of counteract that, you have to find what makes writing fun and exciting so you can actually get writing done. You can do something as simple as like changing the background color of your page to make it your favorite color, or maybe printing out a little monthly chart, and every day that you write, you get to put a little sticker on there. Sticker charts are fun, and it's also a quick little visual dopamine hit. Maybe you write a to-do list every day that says like write, and then when you get to check it off, you get that little dopamine hit. Maybe get a little treat after a hard writing session. Whatever makes you happy, whatever makes it fun. And I do also recommend that if you're feeling really super stuck in dreading your story, go back and listen to the first episode of this podcast where I talked about beating writer's block. So that is all of the advice I have for you today. If you have any questions about writing with ADHD, feel free to reach out to me in the comments or over on my Instagram at CEWithrow, which is also linked down in the description if you don't want to guess how to spell my last name. And for the final part of the video, what I've been reading recently. I actually just finished this book the other day. I got this recommended to me forever ago, but The Women by Kristen Hanna. It is about a army nurse during the Vietnam War in the late 60s and what it was like to go into a war zone, and then what it was like to come home during a time when people weren't really respecting veterans or military service because they didn't agree with the war. I found it really heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and beautiful. I will say I gave it about like 4 stars, but kind of just 4 stars, because there were some times where the descriptive language was like super repetitive. Like there's multiple times where the main character goes to protests, and the way that she describes the veterans is like exactly the same every time. It's like there are men in uniforms, and some of them have crutches, and some of them are in wheelchairs, and there are blind men being led by their fellow veterans, and that's a beautiful idea. But if the main character is going to 5 protests and that's a description of the veterans at every single protest, it feels a little lazy. I don't know. It is a very long book. I cruised through it because I got the audiobook. The narrator is really good, I think. She's like the go-to audiobook narrator. She's a very famous narrator. She did a great job, unsurprising. And that is all that I have to say today. I will see you next week, but in the meantime, keep writing, keep reading, and keep on keeping on. See ya!